welcome in to Turn Up the Volume. This Turn Up the Volume, we're doing it a little bit different. This month is October, and October raises awareness for many different topics, and one of those topics being domestic violence. And we have someone in today to shed light on the awareness of this topic here.
Yes.
Thank you, Becky, again for coming in and shining light on the awareness of domestic violence. I know that we're going to talk a little bit about your story, but before we even get into that, just talk to me about what you're passionate about right now outside of your story.
Yeah, so, obviously I am very passionate about advocating for other survivors, but being a federal employee and all of the things going on in our current government right now, I am also very passionate about that. I am an animal lover. I also like to travel. I have a kind of a wide variety of passions.
Yes. Back on the animals. What's your favorites?
Dogs. I'm a dog lover.
She's a dog gal. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about different things that you enjoy and just what makes you you. I want to switch gears a little bit. Again, like we spoke of, it is October, which represents Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And part of this conversation that we're having is to amplify these voices and to get stories heard. So we want to talk a bit about your story, Becky. Just start where you want to start, but share with us a little bit of your background and how your advocacy even came about for it.
Yeah, so one of the things that I, really always kind of start by telling people is that no one goes in to a relationship saying, I can't wait for this person to hurt me. I can't wait for this relationship to become violent, or I can't wait for the abuse to start. And so I think for me, it's always important leading with that, because it is very difficult for people to understand kind of the way domestic violence relationships lead up to that, because people have this misconception that there's it's like an on-off switch, that things just are always so great, and then all of a sudden something happens. But it is very much a slow escalating chain of events where you just kind of wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, how the heck did I get here? Right. And that, I think, is one of the most important things for people to understand, because once you are out of it, then you are able to have that, like, hindsight is always 20/20 kind of experience, to say, well, like, yeah, I could see all those red flags that were there all along. Like, I could see those things. But when you're living in it, it's so easy to paint those red flags white and cover them up and make excuses for them. I met my abuser in 2013. The relationship started perfectly normal. We began dating, and then we moved in together, and was probably about 6 months or so into the relationship when he first became physically violent with me. And again, I painted that red flag white. I blamed it on, stress and, all these different factors. And one of the other things that I think is really important is that people who are abusive are very manipulative, and their ability to weasel their way back into situations is very strong. They have that talent. And so even after that first situation, when so many people say, well, I would have just left, I would have never gone back, or I would have done this, I would have done that, When you're living it and you have this person who knows how to manipulate you and knows how to like work the system, it's not as easy as just close the door, walk away. So, from there, things kind of continued until it was about like every 6 months to a year, there was a major assault of some kind. And the first time I reached out to Safe Homes was in 2015. And that was actually the first time that I had him arrested as well. I ended up not following through with the protective order and pressing charges and things, largely also because of the manipulation from him. But I also felt very pressured by his attorney. I remember showing up to his attorney's office, and I had him and his attorney sitting at a table with me, telling me, sign this paper saying that you're okay with reducing the charges, you're okay with dropping the protective order, things like this. And I remember very distinctly one of the lines on the paper saying, you're agreeing to do this without any sense of like coercion or, things like that. And I remember thinking like, how is this not coercion? Like I have you two sitting here looking at me, watching me sign this. Like in a normal world, I wouldn't sign this on my own, but what else am I supposed to do in this moment? Like I'm scared not to sign this. And so I signed it because I didn't know what else to do. And we ended up getting back together. And then flash forward to 2018, I was really looking for, well, it was like kind of like the end of 2017. I was really looking for my escape. I was planning it. I was kind of putting the things in motion. Statistically, leaving a relationship is the most dangerous time for anybody going through an abusive relationship. And so I knew I had to be careful. I knew I had to really kind of plan things. And then in early 2018, so like in February 2018, he actually told me that he wanted to end the relationship. And I was like, okay, well that was easy.
Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I was like, well, all right then.
Okay, all my notes out the window.
Yeah, change of events, right? So he moved out of the home that we had purchased together, and he moved in with a new girlfriend because he had been seeing someone else for like a past little bit. I don't know, like a few months or something. And the more he saw me kind of blossom and grow, like turn back into the person I used to be, the more he couldn't let go of his control of me. So he would come back to the house every morning. He would like terrorize me. I know there was a week where it was like literally every morning or every day, I had to call the police for something. There was one morning he came and he blocked my car in so I couldn't leave the garage to go to work. I had to call the police just so I could go to work that morning. There was another day he came and like beat the lock off the front door with a hammer. I mean, there was just like all these crazy things. There was one day he came and stole my jewelry out of the house. I mean, it was just all these crazy things. But little did he know, all that was doing was allowing me to just collect more evidence to get another protective order. Right. So I again reached out to Safe Homes and I got a protective order. That was in March of 2018. I remember very distinctly, even in the judge's chamber, getting that protective order. He was texting me about, like, I'm going to come to the house and do this. I'm going to do this. Like, I mean, like, and it was just like crazy stuff. I mean, he would text me at work and talk about how, like, he was going to come to the house and kill my dogs. He was going to like throw all my stuff outside. He was going to burn all my belongings, you know, all these things. And it was just like I could never escape it. And so when I got home from getting that protective order, they didn't even have the opportunity to serve him. Because he showed up at my house. You know, he showed up at the house. And so, yeah, like he showed up. And so I called 911 and the house that he moved to with the new girlfriend, he was in Columbia County. And so the plan with and I lived in Richmond County. So I had the protective order was drafted by Richmond County judge, but it was supposed to be sent to Columbia County for them to serve it. But because he showed up at my house, I ended up, you know, I called Richmond County. They sent a deputy to my house. And because I literally had just gotten home from getting this temporary protective order awarded to me, the police didn't even know about it. It hadn't even been given to them to serve. I had to make a copy of my version of my copy of the protective order. I had to make a copy on my little like home 3-in-1 printer to give to the deputy that showed up at my house for him to serve him in my driveway with the protective order. And even the officer was like, this is new for me. I've never done this before. Like, he had to call and get instructions from, you know, his chain of command of like, how do I do this? Because this isn't, you know, the way we actually issue protective orders. Like, what do I do? It was just insane. Like, it was just absolutely insane. So that was like the end of March. It only took a couple weeks for him to violate the protective order. That happened Masters Week, and then so he ended up spending a few days in jail because, you know, pretty much everything shuts down for Masters Week. He got out on bond with an additional no contact order, but by the beginning of May, he was already contacting me again. He had created a fake Facebook profile and was contacting me through that. And I remember feeling like it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it just doesn't stop. Every outlet
yeah.
he's been able to.
Yeah, I remember just feeling like it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what the consequences are. Like, he's already been to jail. He's got the protective order. He's got an additional no contact order. Like, 2 different judges now have told you not to contact me. I just remember thinking, like, this is my life. Like, it doesn't matter what I do. Your sole purpose is to terrorize me. So I just kept it to myself. I didn't tell anybody. I just felt like if I can appease him through this contact, through social media, through Facebook Messenger, if I can just give him just enough through here that it will keep him away, then maybe that's the only way to keep myself safe. Maybe this is just what I have to do. And eventually it got to the point where, you know, even that wasn't enough. So it was May 31st of 2018. I, had a normal day at work. I went to the gym after work. When I got home, he started messaging me, and he was saying that he needed to see me. And I kept telling him no. But he was insisting, and he was saying like he was at some event with his girlfriend, and he was going to drop her back home, and then he was going to come to the house. And I kept telling him no, but he wasn't taking no for an answer. So eventually I was like, well, if you need to see me so bad, why can't you bring her? Like, bring her if you need to see me so bad. Because I thought, like, surely he's not that dumb. Like, surely he's not going to bring her. And then the next thing I knew, probably about, 30 minutes or so later, there was a knock at the door. And there he was. And his truck was in the driveway, and she was in the passenger seat. No. And he was there, and they were both there. And I was just like, what? Like, I couldn't believe that this was, like, even real life. Like, I didn't know what to do. Because I just thought, like, how could he, like, why would she let him do that? Like, she knows that there's a protective order. I mean, she sat in the courtroom for my actual court hearing for the 1-year protective order, when that was granted to me, it was like a 3-hour hearing. And she sat there the entire time. I mean, she listened to the entire thing. She knew that he had already been arrested once for violating the temporary protective order. Like, why would she let him risk this to show up here? Like, that was just so bizarre to me. Yeah. So I was just dumbfounded that this was even occurring, and I didn't even know what to do. And so, like, he just walked in the house. We went into the kitchen, and he was, talking, and I kind of don't even remember, like, what he was talking about at first. And then I just remember, like, he started, like, walking closer to me, and I started backing up. And he started getting more and more, like, loud, and I kept telling him, like, you need to leave. And then next thing I know, he just grabbed me. And so my back was against the wall, and he, initially I think he grabbed me by both arms, and he kind of, like, lifted me up and threw me through the wall. Like, he kind of, like, bashed me into the wall. And I know, like, he was grabbing my hair, like, grabbing my head by my hair and slamming my head into the wall. And then he, like, I had this big glass, like, jar, like a glass, like, decanter that was on the counter kind of near me. And I did have a security system in my house, but obviously it wasn't armed at the time. But in the kitchen windows where we were, I knew I had a glass break sensor at those windows. And I just thought, like, I know the system isn't armed, but, like, I don't know, maybe if I could just do something, maybe it will trigger something. I don't know what it could do. And so I grabbed this, that big glass thing off the counter, and I threw it on the ground next to me to shatter it, hoping that it would just trigger something with the alarm. And when I did that, I looked across to where the panel was for the alarm, and I think he realized, like, what I was trying to do. And then he walked over to the panel, and he ripped the entire thing off the wall, and he said, now you can't use that to call for help. And then he grabbed me and he threw me into the floor, and I was laying on my back in the glass, and he sat kind of on top of me, like, straddling, like, at my hips, and he just proceeded to assault me. He was punching me. He was, again, like, grabbing my head by my hair and slamming my head into the floor, like into the kitchen floor. And I remember like my head hitting the floor so hard that it was like numbing, like you know, like cartoons, they have like the stars floating around, like it was like that feeling, that just like blackout feeling. And I remember just thinking like I have to protect like my face, and I have to protect like my vital organs, and just trying to like get into a fetal position as best I could, try to block the punches as best I could. One of the things I like most vividly remember always is like looking at all the glass on the floor and really thinking to myself that none of it was big enough or sharp enough to kill him before he killed me first. Because I just remember thinking like, I need to, if I could just get a big enough piece of glass, I could stab him. But none of it was big enough and sharp enough. He wanted my phone. He was like going through my text messages, and like any like person that was a male that was like in my call history or my text history, he started like texting people, any of the males anyway, and he was texting them like as though me and that person were having sex. So he was saying, he would send them just a message like, I can't have sex with you anymore, I can't see you anymore, which was particularly uncomfortable for some of the people who received those messages, because there were people who did not, you know, who I wasn't having those relationships with. And so, you know, some of the people replied and like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
you know, what is going on? Yeah, very confused. And, you know, some of the people did not reply, probably because also they were confused, like what the heck is going on? And then like when people would reply, he would start to hit me worse, or hit me again, and say, see, they're responding, that means you are having sex with them. And keep in mind, this was after, you know, he was already seeing someone else. So it was a very strange thing. His girlfriend, you know, like I said, she was in the truck. She called him about 4 or 5 times probably during this time, and he would stop and he would answer the phone, and I could hear her, and she would say, you know, like, what are you doing? What's taking so long? And I remember screaming like at the top of my lungs, help me, call 911. I remember screaming her name. And for her privacy, I won't say her name on here, but I remember, you know, screaming her name and saying, help me, call 911. You know, he's beating me, like he's attacking me. And I could hear her say, you know, what's happening, what's going on? And he would say, you know, nothing, I'll be out in a second. And he would hang up. And, you know, he would say, oh, you think she's going to come in here and help you? But the help never came.
Wow.
You know, I don't know Was she scared? I don't know. Was it, I in my heart I believe that she could hear me because I could hear her very clearly, and I know I was screaming. Um, but I would assume that she was probably scared and confused. And I also do strongly believe that because I know the type of manipulation and things that he's capable of, he probably had her very confused and manipulated as to like the type of person I was.
Right.
So eventually, he let me up out of the kitchen floor, and we moved into the living room. At some point in the living room, I think he thought I was gonna go out the back door, and I remember him kicking me in the stomach. It to the point that like he kicked me so hard, like in my lower abdomen, that I actually peed on myself, and then he threw me into the couch. And then there was one point where he made me he told me that he wanted to have sex with me, and he made me start taking off my clothes, and then kind of start in a portion of that, then he changed his mind and told me to start putting my clothes back on. And then kind of as fast as it all started, it was all kind of coming to an end. And he made me promise him that I wouldn't call the police. He made me promise him that we would get back together, that we would go to couples counseling, and that we would go on a date the next day.
Wow.
And
next day.
yeah, the next day. And just like that, I agreed. I obliged to all of those promises, and I walked him to the door. I stood there as he walked out, got in the truck, and drove away. And then I locked the door. I text, actually, just the first person that was in my chain of texts, which happened to be one of the people that he texted about not being able to have sex with again. And I was like, hey, that was him that was messaging you. And it was a person who knew, about what had gone, my history with him a little bit, that we were broken up and that I had a protective order. And I said, that was him messaging you that stuff. And I said, he, just beat me up really badly. I need you to call 911. And I said, I'm scared that he will come back, and if I'm on the phone when he comes back, that he'll kill me. And so I did have I still do, but I had gotten a handgun kind of during that time period, and so I went and got my gun, and I waited for the police to come, because I had already made up the decision in my mind that if he came back, I was going to kill him before he had the opportunity to kill me. And I wasn't, whatever the consequences for doing that were going to be, I was willing to take that over being dead, over being a statistic. And so when the police came, I just kind of held up my hands and I said, hey, I have a gun in my pocket, because I had put on a sweatshirt. I said, there's a gun in my pocket, and I let them take it out. And fortunately, or unfortunately, I guess, from calling the police to my home so many times in such a recent period, because of all of the incidents with him, I had become very familiar with all the officers that worked in my zone. So, the ones that had come that night, they were officers that were familiar, had already been to my home previously for other incidents, kind of leading up to that. And so they were great. Shout out to Richmond County Zone 4. You guys were awesome that night. I really appreciate everything. The officer, took my statement very quickly, and I called a friend who quickly helped me pack up a few things and my dogs, and took me to the hospital. And from there, I kept in touch with the deputy because they needed updates on, what my injuries were. And after that, it took a week between Richmond County and Columbia County to take him into custody, because he was kind of on the run. They actually had to get the marshals involved to track his cell phone. And to my knowledge, a SWAT team went after the marshals tracked his cell phone, and confirmed that he was inside the girlfriend's home, because they believed that's where he was, but they didn't have, the proof. My knowledge is that she wasn't really cooperating. So after they confirmed that with the help of the marshals, they took a SWAT team and went and took him into custody from her home. And so that was, I believe that was about June 7th. So yeah, it was about a week. I spent that week at my mom's house she lives outside of Columbia, South Carolina, because I was so scared. I was too scared to come back around here. And I think getting that phone call that he was taken into custody was one of the best phone calls I've probably ever had. One of the most relieving phone calls. I will say also, where my mom lives is also Aiken County, and their police were very understanding and helpful as well. They did extra drive-bys past my mom's house also, for that time period that I was there, just out of additional caution in case he were to show up there. So I think really, having that extra support and that extra kind of comfort, knowing that other people were looking out for you, was super helpful, was comforting. Then we waited for court. So he was initially charged, by the police with first it was like misdemeanor charges, and then the DA's office increased the charges, kind of once it was all said and done. The first judge that we were assigned had kind of some health issues, and then ended up retiring, and then the other judges were kind of trying to cover, and then COVID. And so that put everything on hold for an extended period of time. So in May of 2021, right? See, 18, 19, 20, mm-hmm. Yeah, 2021. We actually had our an actual court date. He ended up taking a plea deal, and so we didn't actually go through a full trial. So he took a plea deal, and so all we did was go to sentencing. But so it was almost 3 years to the exact day from that assault that we were. It was just like 3 days shy of being 3 years to the exact date. We went to sentencing, and he was sentenced to the max of his plea deal. So he was sentenced to felony aggravated assault, which is basically Georgia's attempted murder charge, felony terroristic threats, felony criminal trespassing, and misdemeanor sexual assault. The journey has been long. Yeah. There's been a lot of rough days, but there's also been, I think, some good days. There's been a lot of light at the end of that tunnel. I think that there's so much I have learned about resources and agencies and things that are out there. Safe Homes was immensely beneficial to me. Without Safe Homes, getting the protective order so fast was super helpful. Like, I remember even one of the officers was like, "Whoa, we were just here the other day and you didn't have this, and now today you do." Like, I mean, even the officer was shocked at how fast I got the protective order through Safe Homes. The Georgia Crime Victims Compensation Fund is another program that I was able to use as a resource. They helped me cover out-of-pocket expenses for my hospital bills, my co-pays. I also used them for counseling, paying my out-of-pocket expenses for counseling. Then now I am enrolled with the Georgia Board of Probation and Parole. So they have a program for crime victims. And basically, you get, if you are the victim of a violent crime, you can enroll yourself with them, and you get like an ID number and like a little card kind of thing. And if anything happens with your, I say your inmate, but if anything happens with your the inmate who I guess carried out a crime against you, They will notify you. So, like, if they were to escape prison, or if they are up for parole, or if they are released early, or anything like that, you are informed of that. And that has actually already, that program has actually already really worked out in my favor. Last year, I had the opportunity to actually meet with a representative from the Georgia Parole Board to share my story and give them a firsthand account of everything that has happened to me, my history, and why I do not believe that he should be offered parole. And so, as a victim of a violent crime, as hard as it is, I think advocating for yourself is really the best thing that we can do, because nobody knows your story the way you do. You can write letters, or you can send pictures and, these kinds of things. But when you can actually sit down and tell someone your story and share it, that make that personal connection with someone, I think it goes so much deeper. I'm really thankful for having that opportunity, and being able to participate in that. Now I'm thankful for being able to do things like this and, share my story and my experiences, the good and the bad with other people, and hopefully encourage others that are in those difficult situations that there is life after domestic violence, and there is light at the end of that tunnel, and there is hope, it won't always be easy, but we can make it through it. And there are resources, and there are people who have your back, even if you don't know it. We are a network of people who care about you, even if you don't know us. So.
Becky, I thank you for coming in and telling your story the whole time. Chills. I know I said the room is cold, but these are different, type of chill bumps. Thank you for telling your story. I can see that it's a roller coaster for you, but it's still a light for you to be able to tell the story.
Yes.
And you've hit on those resources that you were able to reach out to. I think that's very important. Safe homes. We have safe homes in the area. You talked about how the law enforcement were so on it. That's powerful in itself, like, hey, they are here to help you. There are organizations here to help you. And then also the patrol board that you talked about. I think that's amazing to speak on. So just people that might be going through something similar or know somebody that's going through that, you naming those things in itself, I think is a helping stone right there. A helping stone and a stepping stone for them.
I think the biggest thing is, sometimes it's being resourceful and in maybe an unexpected way, because nobody can do it for you. Like, we have to want to do it ourselves, and we have to plan it in the way that's right for us. And I think that is also the part that other people have difficulty understanding as well, because everybody says, we'll just leave, we'll just do this, we'll just do that. But only we know the right way, because we know our abusers better than we know or better than they know themselves.
Right.
Even we could tell you what will set them off, what will trigger them, all these things. And so we also know the ways to keep ourselves safe the best. And so knowing that there is a network of resources out there, but it just really takes you taking that first step, and recognizing that you have to make that first hard leap, that don't feel like people aren't there for you. I know it can be frustrating when you don't feel like things are happening in a timely manner, or you don't feel like it's happening the way you want it to or you need it to. But there are resources there. We just have to advocate, and we have to push for what we know is the right thing, and do the best we can to keep ourselves safe. Because I think at the end of the day, even in my situation, a piece of paper isn't what's going to keep you safe. A protective order it's a set of rules, but unfortunately it doesn't keep you safe, but it does allow the police or the DA's office or the judge to charge someone more offensively, and it's up to us to make sure we are following through on our end as well.
Yeah, I love that there. And like you spoke about earlier, it was unfortunate that you had to make that many calls, but it was fortunate at the same time, because they knew your rap sheet and was like, okay, we know her story, let's get things going. And I want to sort of end this with, I know we're speaking about it being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but outside of this month, how can the community, how can we, stay aware of domestic violence, help out outside of just October, where all eyes are on the situation?
Yeah, so definitely, as far as locally, Safe Homes takes donations year round. So don't be scared to visit their website and give donations, because domestic violence occurs all year round. I think also just being an advocate, if you know somebody who is going through a difficult situation, or if you yourself are going through a difficult situation, bring awareness to it. Don't be scared to speak about domestic violence. I think that the more we talk about it, the less taboo it will become. And I think it's important that we don't only talk about domestic violence in October because it's Domestic Violence Month. I think that we recognize that domestic violence occurs all the time, that domestic violence is not just a women's issue, that domestic violence can happen with any type of a relationship. It can happen in dating relationships. More and more it's happening in younger teen relationships. And that we really need to make that culture shift. We really, as a community, we need to recognize that it's an epidemic. And we have to correct that. We have to come together and correct that. The same way that we ban around other diseases, we need to correct this as well. Like, this is a true violence issue, and it impacts everybody. I think that's another really important thing to address, or area to address, is that people have this mindset of, like, it won't happen to me, or that's a them issue, not a me issue. But domestic violence can touch anyone. People that there were many people that I worked with that would have never known that that's what I was going through. And so you very well may know someone who's going through it, but we hide it very well. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter your race, your religion, any of your background. it can happen to you. So just recognizing that it really is a total community issue, not just a them issue, is important.
Well, Becky, I thank you for coming in to share your story, share these tips and everything, because I know it's definitely going to be something to help someone, and again, to help people that say, oh, I don't know much about it, or that can't be me, just to see another light in it, see how we can continue to help in everything. So again, I thank you for coming in and sharing your story here.
Thank
on
you for
Fox
having
54.
me.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.